Hey there. Hi, everybody. I'm,
Hello,
I'm Ariel Hubbard.
and I'm Vicki Draper.
We have a really fun topic for you today on healing for pets and people. We are going to talk about plants, house plants, CBD, and cannabis. We're going to talk about safety for humans and animals. So, Vicki, you want to start us off? There's some really interesting information in today's show.
Well, sure. Cannabis is all the rage, and it's legal now in some states and becoming more legal in other states. And just so for information, that the CBD that's in your pet treats, that's not cannabis. It's been processed and it's hemp. So it's taking out what would be toxic to your cats and dogs for the treats. You still want to get them from a reputable source. However, that part is safe. And marijuana, the cannabis itself, is not safe for your pets. Very toxic. And so that includes even if you're smoking the secondhand smoke.
Secondhand
So
smoke.
you really, really, really want to be aware of that around your pets, and actually not be around your pets doing it. um, and then we'll go into some house plants and outdoor plants for your yard that are safe and not safe, because things you don't even think about. I mean, and I've got plant stories to share and my own stories, so we'll get to those. So, Ariel, what would you like to share?
Well, okay. So, as we mentioned, hemp and cannabis are cousins, but they're not the same thing. So, CBD is actually legal all across the country. So, like if you had CBD gummies in your purse and you got on an airplane, you could go from one state to another and it's not a big deal. Hemp gummies, however, are not legal in all states. So, you could get in trouble if you have those. So, you want to be careful. This week, the White House talked about classifying marijuana to a less dangerous or less narcotic scale, just trying to just tone it back a little bit. And so one of the things you guys should know is even though in a lot of states cannabis is legal, right? You can't get a DUI if you're driving and you're under the influence. And people kind of think, oh, it's not the same as alcohol, but you know what? You can get a DUI for that. So if you are partaking, you want to make sure that you consider not smoking or gummying and driving. And the thing is about edibles, okay? So edibles are usually, and oh my gosh, there's so many different ways they have it. It's unbelievable. They have candies, um, they have little gummies, they have soda pop, and you can really accidentally overserve yourself with the soda pop. You really need to read labels before you take stuff. If you take a gummy, it usually kicks in about 1.5 to 2 hours after you ingest it. So you need to plan accordingly. So if you're like going to be, you take a gummy and then you drive and you're driving 2 hours later, you want to not do that. So because it's a safety thing, you have to be careful. You want to look at the dosages of these things also. And a lot of gummies have combined a THC and CBD combo. And that's something you want to watch out for yourself, or you want to make sure your pets don't accidentally eat those gummies, especially if they have THC in them. As Vicky mentioned, there are people out there in the world who want to work with hallucinogens. Some of them do it recreationally. Some of them do it spiritually, like with the shaman. Now, like peyote is a cactus, and it is the Native American church. They do ceremonies with peyote, and it's a structure, and there's a shaman, and there are people that look after you. And it's a very intense experience. And that's a controlled environment where you have support and you have spiritual support. And part of this is energetically, because if you do a lot of hallucinogens and you're not making taking safeguards spiritually before you take them, if you like astrally travel or leave your body, or expand your consciousness, and you don't have safeguards with your guide set in place, non-physical creatures or beings that might want to connect and attach with you without your permission can get in if you don't set up safeguards in place. And I don't want to get into too much detail, but let's just say that some of these things like peyote, marijuana or cannabis, right? Datura, which they use in South America, which is toxic if you take too much of it. Ayahuasca, or they call it Natem in Ecuador, or San Pedro, and there's frog medicine. There are all these other things. They do expand your consciousness, but if you take too much of them, you can get really, really sick. And in some cases, like with some mushrooms are deadly. So you need to be careful about what you're doing, what you're microdosing, and how you're doing it. And that's just something to be aware of and pay attention to in your like day-to-day life. So just want to put that PSA out there for you, especially with the driving under influence thing. People forget that you can get DUIs for that stuff. So just want to make sure you're aware. And Vicki, by the way, how can people reach us? Vicki, you have your
I,
website, your background.
I
So,
do. So the best way to reach me is healingyouranimal.com on my website. It has my
uh-huh,
phone. It has ways you can sign up for a free assessment. It also shares
right?
all my classes. It shares, you know, a lot of information. So healingyouranimal.com is the thing to remember to get in touch with me.
Right. Right. And my
And about
website's
you, Ariel?
arielhubbard.com. Yeah, that's arielhubbard.com. You can see my spelling and my name on the screen. If you put a .com after it, you can see my blog on there. You can read up on all the different things I do, variety of different things I do, sessions, classes, all kinds of stuff. So guys can reach us. But Vicki, you have plant stories, right? What about
Well,
toxic
yeah, and
house
the one thing
plants?
yes, and I want to just share about the CBD real quick.
Oh yeah.
Well, then we'll go to house plants, other kind of plants. Oh, so yes, because I had a cat client that the guardian had given CBD, and I'm like, your cat. I didn't say this to her, but I was like, your cat is high, and so because it's not regulated.
Yeah, that's a
It's
problem.
not regulated, so that is my PSA is really do your due diligence, get it from a reputable source. And
Right.
my
Because
client,
human CBD is regulated, but pet CBD is not.
yeah, because my
Yeah.
client thought hers was, and it wasn't. And,
Oh, wow.
and I knew um she wasn't giving it very much or very, I don't know. Anyway, what I know is yes, your animals can get high. That's what we don't want because the is it TCH is not supposed
THC.
to be
THC. Yeah.
THC is not supposed to be in the treats, the CBD treats, except it's not regulated. So you have to be really careful in where you get it from.
And of course, why would your client give it thought? Because why would anybody give it thought? Because we're not thinking, oh, THC is bad for our pets. We're not thinking, oh, this could be toxic. We're thinking, oh, how can I have my pet not have anxiety?
Yeah,
Right.
or pain. Yeah, they
Or
for the
pain,
pets, they
right?
usually do it for anxiety or pain.
Pain or digestive issues, right?
And
Yeah.
so yeah, you think you're doing a good thing, so just
So
do
keep that
diligence.
in mind, everybody. Like because CBD, what do people use CBD? People ask me all the time in my practice, like, what can I do for pain management? And I talk about different levels of pain management. Everything from like your ibuprofen or your acetaminophen, right? To like a topical, like an arnica, which is homeopathic, or like a topricin or like a biofreeze, right? Well, those are topicals that a lot of times they feel cold and that reduces nerve conductivity, and then they don't feel pain as much. But then if they need to up level it, I'll say, well, you could try CBD. And then if they need more, you could do THC CBD combo. You could do internal, or you could do topical, or you could do both. And so there are levels of pain management, right? For people that when they're trying to manage pain and they're trying to like control their symptoms. A lot of people use it for pain management, they use it for digestion enhancement, and they use it for inflammation reduction, and they use it for anxiety or anxiety management. That's what a lot of people use um, cannabis and CBD for, right? All those
Yes.
things. And I think for pets, I'm guessing that some of that's the same for the CBD.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And so I had a client, I was working with her kitties, and she had been having a lot of anxiety. So she was using the CBD for management of her anxiety.
Right.
And it must have had some cannabis in it because she was trying to get a job and they were doing drug testing and she couldn't pass it.
Oh my God.
So,
She
yeah, so
didn't
you
even know.
wanna yeah, she didn't know. So then even though after she quit using that for medicinal reasons, it still took a while to get out of her system.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so there's just lots of things you gotta think about.
Yeah.
And so with, pets and plants, I don't know if you've noticed that you have a plant and your cats and dogs are interested. I quit having plants because my cats would just mutilate mine. I had safe ones for them, in case they did that, but then they look scraggly, and I'm like, like little Charlie Brown plants. After my cats got a hold of them, and I'm like, it just got to where it wasn't worth having them. Um, and even one cat, I'd had these beautiful African violets, and she'd go eat the blooms off.
Aw.
Like, oh, come on. Uh, so African violets are safe for your pets. It's just some of them may like the flowers as kibble.
Because they're edible.
It's like they lose. I mean, they're pretty with just the green leaves, but I really like the blooms.
Right?
And so you really want to be conscious of the plants you have in your house. Um, because I have a client whose cat, she couldn't figure out what was going on with him, and we had a session, and she sent me a picture afterwards, and he was in one of her plants. Well, she didn't know he could get to it, and it was toxic.
Oh,
Yeah. So my advice to you, pet parents with plants, don't have any that are toxic in your home
do you
because
know which ones are toxic?
you can Google because there's a whole list. I
Oh,
can give
wow. Okay.
you a list of common ones. Hang on, I had it here ready. So, because there are some very common ones. So aloe, I really want aloe in my house,
Really?
but I don't have it. So yeah, aloe is because it's always great if you got to burn.
Yeah, totally.
Lilies,
Really? Wow.
asparagus fern, jade, philodendron, dieffenbachia, sago palm, dracaena, amaryllis, English
Really?
ivy, caladium, chrysanthemums, cyclamen, oleander, the peace lily,
Aw.
pothos, snake plant, autumn crocus, azalea, corn plant, lily of the valley, marijuana, tomato, and ivy are some. There's many
Wow.
more. So you always want to do your due diligence before
So if
getting
you have
a plant.
tomatoes in your garden, don't let your cat go back there and eat chomp on those things.
Right. So that's why you want to,
Wow.
right. Because even
Yeah.
your dogs will dig and, it, so because I had a client that had brought in a peace lily after, a funeral, not realizing, toxicity. Luckily, she just knew her dog was having some issues, and then she put it together to go, oh, this was new, took it outside immediately. Well, actually, when we were talking in our session, I said, oh, yeah, they're toxic, and so she took it out immediately. Um, they're just very common plants, but you don't think about it. And the other thing about the house plants, you want to make sure the fertilizer is more natural, because if you're using a bunch of chemicals, just because your plants are safe, if they're getting in the dirt or they're getting,
Wow.
if they're
Yeah.
eating the leaves that fall off that may have a little dirt on it, there's all these things you don't think about really keeping your pets safe.
It's really interesting you said about fertilizer. So a lot of times when I do reflexology on people's feet and I'm massaging the lung reflex, I should say, I'll ask them, have you been exposed to toxins? Have you been exposed to paints, solvents, some kind of air pollution? Because I'll feel this tension in their lungs. And that bark that people use for landscaping that is nasty, that off gases, that horrible smell, people get lung pain from that. Like, you don't, if you can avoid using that stuff, I would recommend not using it, I should say. Don't use that if you don't have to, because that off gas is some very toxic stuff. And you'll notice if you're around it and you breathe in that smell from that landscaping bark, and if you don't feel so good, that's because it's toxic. So avoid that in your garden, and especially for you and your pets, really.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, um, yeah, because
You don't want to breathe that stuff. It's not good for you.
no, you don't. And then I've had when I've had kittens, they would get in my bigger pots and think it's the bathroom, the
Oh
litter
God,
box and
yes.
dig, and it's like I train them to, well, actually I put chicken coop in there so they couldn't even get in there because it's like that's not the litter box, which is natural for them. And so things you don't think about. But
Right, totally.
so since we're talking about things that aren't safe, let's talk about things that are safe. And um I have hilarious story of a friend of mine recently. She calls me up and she goes, "You home?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah." She goes, "I've got something for you. I'm coming over." And so she arrives at my house. And I've told you I don't have a lot of plants just because I've gotten used to not having them having cats. And I
Yeah.
love plants. And so, so anyway, she arrives at my door with this 6 foot tall majestic fern. I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, where am I going to put this thing? And she said, so she was so excited to buy it for me.
Oh
And
no, she didn't know.
and she also didn't know, she did her due diligence. She was also at the store going, is this toxic? Is it, so I was very proud of that. So I have it in my bedroom. I absolutely love it. And I'm grateful for that because I wouldn't have done that,
Uh-huh.
just because, like I said, my past experience. But luckily, my cats are a little older. And so they did look at it. They have a few of the leaves chomped off, but it's so big, that's not taking away from it, you know?
That's hilarious.
Um, and so I was very proud of her for going, is it safe? Is it safe? So let me give you a list of safe plants. So it's a majestic palm. That is safe for cats and dogs. The Boston fern, the African violets we've talked about, um, baby's tears. There's a Chinese money plant, as
Oh
well
yeah.
as well as the money tree. The banana tree is safe. Um, some of the succulents you'll need to research. Gloxinia, the spider plant. Those things grow like crazy and
They
they are
do.
they are very safe. But that was another one that my cats would like to chop off the ends.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
They
um,
do. They love to chomp on that.
yeah, the Venus flytrap,
Oh
um,
good.
the
My kid wants
Areca
one of those.
palm, the Calathea, Haworthia. I'm not familiar with that one. There's a polka dot plant.
Wow.
Um, the air plant, Tillandsia stricta.
Wow.
The prayer plant. I love prayer plant. The friendship plant. Peperomia. The orchids are safe.
Okay.
Mosaic plants, bromelade,
Okay.
ponytail palm. There's a
Oh, you mean
purple.
bromeliads? Oh, bromeliads. Yeah, I love those things. Those are like tropical plants.
Yeah, and so a parlor palm, and then staghorn fern. And then I said the money tree. So there's
Yeah.
a long list of very safe ones, but there's also a long list of not. So just do
Uh-huh.
your due diligence when you want to have plants, even in your yard, like you said, because dogs like to go out and dig and play, and so do the cats if they're indoor.
Totally.
But anyway,
Something to think about. Before we finish, I want to just mention mushrooms for a minute. So, there's been a trend lately where moms, I don't know why they talk about moms on mushrooms. I don't know why it's catchy, but like there are moms out there who microdose on mushrooms. If you decide you want to do that, make sure you research A, which type of mushrooms they are, B, where they're coming from, just to make sure that they're not a dangerous variety of mushrooms, because there are mushrooms out there that are deadly and poisonous. So just do your research before you microdose, just saying, so that you can be safe, right? All right. Well, we got some pretty interesting things here. Anything else we want to share before we finish up for this month?
Oh, just gonna share that, yes, you can have, if you're plant lovers, you can have a house full of plants, beautiful plants, because there's a whole big variety that are
Yes,
safe, just like I said, research. And this is just to help you be aware and keep your pets and you safe, because I know, you're wanting to live your best lives. So
totally.
that's what we're doing, why we're doing this, just to help you do that.
Absolutely. So you guys know where to find Vicki, healingyouranimal.com.
That's right. And Ariel at arielhubbard.com. And we love being connecting and being together and sharing this information with you. So join us next month where we get together typically the first Thursday of the month, 10 a.m. Pacific. But you can always watch the replays. So,
Yes. On your website, healingyouranimal.com, under media, the media tab, and you can watch replays. So we've got a lot of fun stuff to share.
all righty. Well, um,
Thanks, everybody.
that's right. We'll see you next month.
Take care.